Hey, good afternoon. This is Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing. I'm bringing you another slice, if you will, of social media pie. Very excited because today I have with me Nikki Little. Nikki, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Good. It's so nice to see you. And
You
it's
too.
nice to, I was saying this the other day, so nice to see faces of people that are not in my house with me,
I
which
know, right?
is
I love my coworkers. I love my family, but I've been seeing a lot of them lately.
right. And I was on a call this morning with somebody, and there was like a young child. I think it was like 2 or 3, and she's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I go, "That's okay. Is that your coworker? Does she want to come in the call with us?"
Right.
And you got to vamp. I mean, we're both working moms, so we kind of both get that.
Yes.
So the challenges of today and the life that we're living
Right. It
are
is what it is.
yes. So before we get started into the conversation, I just want to invite anybody who happens to be watching us, drop a comment below, whether you're watching us on Facebook Live or on LinkedIn Live. We can't see who you are until you like the post or you leave us a comment. So if you know Nikki, drop a comment below. If you have questions about the conversation, about the topic we're talking about here today, you can drop those in the comments as well. And a little bit later in the broadcast, I'll give you guys some shout outs. So reminder on there too. If you do leave your comment on Facebook, I'm just going to pop that up on screen. If you leave your comment on Facebook, I can actually pull your comment up on screen. So a little bit of a kind of a nuance of the StreamYard platform here. So we're going to get started with our conversation here today. And I wanted to just kind of take you through the background a little bit. So Nikki and I have been connected for many, many years online. We both kind of work in the digital marketing space. And before we got on the call today, I was trying to remember, Nikki, where we met. And I remember seeing and hearing your name a lot online. And I think there was a conference up in Frankenmuth, Michigan. I want to say like Social Media of Michigan. It was some statewide event. You were
Yes.
one of the speakers. I remember you being up on stage. You rocked it, of course. And I met you afterwards and I was like, oh, this is so cool. I get to meet Nikki in person. You were kind of like the celebrity. And I finally got the chance to meet you in person. Do you remember what that event was?
I think it was a Social Media Association of Michigan, or it was like a Social Media Club Great Lakes Bay event. But I remember it was like in the Frankenmuth or Bay City area region.
Yeah.
It was so long ago now. But yes, I think we had known of each other and we had been to events. But that was like the first time we actually got to meet and talk in person.
Yeah. And it's amazing how, through online, I feel like, I've probably only seen you a handful of times at different events, maybe more than that, but I feel like I see you all the time online, whether it is on LinkedIn or, Facebook, you've got a group out there and,
Right.
able to keep in touch. And throughout our careers, I think we've really been able to remain in contact with each other, but we've also been able to really leverage what we know online to help us with our careers as our careers have
Yes.
been changing. So when I reached out to Nikki to invite her to join me on LinkedIn Live, I said, I think, it'd be a great conversation to have. What do you want to talk about? And Nikki said, hey, let's talk about strategies for internal and external communications. And wow, what a timely topic right now, because
Right.
so much happening in the workplace, dealing with, pandemic, work from home, COVID, everything. So we're going to join that conversation a little bit. But Nikki, if we could, before we get into that conversation, if you could take a moment and for those folks who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are and maybe a little bit about your company as well.
Yes. So I have been in the communications industry about 13 years now. Fun fact, I'm at Franco right now, but I actually started my career there back in 2007. I was lucky. I got a job right out of college, went to CMU at the PR program there, graduated, got a job, worked at Franco for 3 years. And then now, fast forward, I am back at Franco. So had 2 other jobs in between there. I was at another agency for close to 8 years, really specializing in the social media field. Really starting to kind of like cut my chops there and understanding how social media applies to businesses. What is digital marketing? How do we use this from a business perspective? How does it tie into PR? And really being part of that kind of wave of using social and digital to influence what the PR industry looks like. And then after being in agency life for over 10 years, I wanted to try something new. So I went to a local, what was a startup at the time, spent 2 years there as their first director of communications, built up a a digital and communications team there, and then had a really great opportunity to come back to Franco. So started back there in September of last year, and currently I'm the VP of strategy there. So I do lead our digital team and digital efforts there, but my kind of core focus is really making sure that there's that integration between all of our different services that we provide, and making sure that everything is working together cohesively and seamlessly, and that we're really providing powerful, impactful, and integrated communications programs for our clients. So Franco's been in Detroit for 56 years. We're actually, I don't like to say the oldest firm, but we are the most legacy firm. The most experienced, yes, 56 years. We've learned quite a bit in that time. So we're based in Detroit in the Renaissance Center, but we work with companies all across the company or all across the country and globe, B2B, B2C, variety of industries. So it's fun.
Awesome. Any clients? I mean, we're both in Metro Detroit, so any Michigan-based clients that anyone would be aware of that you're able to share with us?
Buddy's Pizza.
Ooh,
that's a fun one.
Love
That's one of my clients.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I know. Yes, Buddy's Pizza, the Salvation Army. That's a big one that's been with us for quite a while. We represent the city of Milford. We work with Detroit Grooming Company. So good variety of Michigan and, like I said, national and some international based clients as well.
That's awesome. And as you were talking, you went to Central Michigan. I went to Central Michigan.
Yes.
When were you there? I graduated in '96. I'll reveal my age first. I don't mind.
2006.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think we might be a couple years apart there. But I'm like, maybe. I'll be hopeful on this. But interesting full circle. So you and I actually have this in common. So my first job out of college was working for donor advertising and media planning. And I quickly realized I didn't want to do numbers for the rest of my career. And I went into marketing and everything. But I eventually, my last corporate job, the last agency that I worked with was Donor. So when we booked Donor for working for our agency of record, some of the same people that I was working with when I was a lowly little level intern media planner were now reporting to me. I was a client. So talk about kind of weird full circle. They were very nice people. And it wasn't weird. It was more like, wow, I remember I pulled up I had like kept a class journal of people I met, and I'm like, oh, look, I talk about Gail often in my journal, and she's here now working on the team. So full circle, you never know where the future is going to lead, right?
No, you don't.
Yeah. So let's have this conversation about, talking about strategies for internal and external communications, and help us to kind of walk through. I mean, there may be folks watching this that are struggling with, what do we do? Where we're at right now with COVID, and we've now gone from kind of the pre-COVID preparedness, into the work from home. How's everybody doing? And now there's another, there's going to be a door that opens people back into their businesses again, and then there's a path going forward. So let's kind of start that conversation.
Yeah. So in setting the stage here, I think the important thing to understand is that we as consumers don't expect brands to stop marketing and advertising, but what we expect is to see that shift, right? So I'm sure we can all think of an example that we've seen in whether it's scrolling through Facebook or an email or even a TV ad where we're just like, that's tone deaf. Like that's not relevant right now. It's not aligned with what people are feeling, what they are doing, just what the situation and reality is that we're living in right now. So that is one, important thing that I kind of wanted to start it off with, is that I know in the beginning, and we even did this with our clients and with our agency ourselves, like when this crisis hit, we paused and we said, let's take a breather. Let's take a few days to see what did we have in the hopper? What campaigns did we have planned? What content did we have scheduled? What marketing messaging were we planning to go out externally with? And does that still make sense, right? So pausing and then reevaluating and shifting is totally expected right now. But where I would encourage, if anybody has been completely dark over the past couple of weeks, now is the time to start figuring out what is relevant, authentic, helpful to be putting out there, but going dark is not the answer.
So let me ask you a question about that. So, I mean, when people were going through this, sometimes you have a tragedy occurs, and I'll just say 9/11 for example, and there was a point in time, where that event occurred, and it was a very clear kind of delineation between the before times and kind of the after times, and we were in it was almost like a shifting timeline depending on where you were in the country. And it was like, okay, Friday things are okay, and maybe Monday they're not, or are they? At what point how do you advise clients on that? Like, at what point do you think about the communication strategy? Is it when it starts to feel a little awkward, or should we be thinking about that now for what the next, how do you create that timeline, I guess?
Yeah, it's going to be different for each industry and each brand. But again, I think you just have to really evaluate, like, what is your position in the marketplace, and is your brand more needed or more relevant now than it was before? Like, people are baking a ton of bread right now, right? They're cooking a lot more at home. So if you have a brand that aligns with that, by all means, you should be out there putting helpful content out there. I actually had an example about McCormick and how that's not really a brand that people would typically turn to when it comes to looking for recipe or cook at home inspiration. Like, we'd go to the Tasty videos or Food 52, but McCormick saw an opportunity of like, okay, people are home now more, they're cooking, where McCormick would typically sell to retailers or restaurants. They started to play in the social media space a little bit and started testing the waters with this video of like a live recipe demonstration, and they weren't sure how it was going to go. It was a Q&A session, and they ended up getting 300 responses in 3 days. So that showed him that there is an audience there and that people are interested in hearing from a brand like McCormick right now. So then they started doing more live cooking demonstrations, putting recipes on their website, creating Spotify playlists for when you're cooking at home with your family. So that was a good example of like assessing the situation and realizing we may have something here. So maybe before we weren't doing a ton of like direct to consumer type marketing, but let's test it out. It was low risk, high reward. They saw that there was interest, and then they continued doing that. So I think just a big part is, again, just like being smart about, again, where you kind of are in your brand positioning in the marketplace. Is the current messaging that you have established relevant? If it's not, can you tweak it to make it a little bit relevant? And then test it out a little bit, right? If you see it doesn't work, okay, it doesn't work. But then if you do, then that gives you a little more proof points to start building on something new.
Yeah, you can kind of get the confidence going through the process too by tipping your toe out. And we were talking about baking. I mean, are you baking more at home right now? And
no. I am not a baker.
Like, yes, I'm a big cracker. No, I'm not.
Or a cook baker. My husband does that. He is the chef and cook in the house. So we're both working a lot from home right now and balancing kids. So a little bit of FOMO as I'm seeing all these people who are baking and cooking things. I'm like, we're eating well, but we're like not doing fancy cooking right now.
Right. It is hard. I mean, you've got school age children, because now we're homeschooling. We're, and when now you have two people working out of the home, whereas, before, like, I was working from home, my husband worked outside the home. Now we're both home, and his hours have been cut down. So he's kind of taking a little bit more of the helping the kids with school and things, as I'm trying to keep, my business running, but it's challenging. Right. And, but the baking thing, I have to say, we started baking banana chocolate chip muffins. OMG.
Oh, nice.
Like, really good and simple. And, but it's fun. But I love the McCormick example of, let's figure out how we can look at what people are talking about, what people are doing. And I think there's a realness factor to this, right?
Yes.
And you're not, your earlier point, you're not tone deaf. People are home. I mean, there's an opportunity. It doesn't mean you're being opportunistic by jumping on that. It's just being, let's insert ourselves strategically into the conversation, right?
Right. And I think something interesting right now that's kind of come full circle is, so if you have been part of the digital space, maybe anywhere between the last 8 to 10 years, and especially like when some of the social channels started coming out and people started experimenting with using Facebook, Twitter for branding, marketing type purposes, we always heard from the experts, be human. Be authentic, to the point to where it was like drilled in your head. And then it got to be like, if I hear one more person tell me be human, be authentic, like I'm going to go nuts. I got it. But what's funny now is that that's come back, like human-centric marketing. I was telling you earlier, but Ryan Coral of Tell Studios put together this really great virtual digital marketing summit last week. And it was all about digital marketing with soul and human-centric marketing. And I thought it was such a smart topic, because we've come back to that. So being human, being authentic, those aren't marketing buzzwords anymore. I feel like they're marketing expectations. So that's a big part of like reevaluating like what messaging you're going out with during this crisis. And now as we're starting to come into the reemergence phase, is like, are you relevant? Are you relatable? Are you real? And that, again, to me has now become like, that's an expectation. It's not a buzzword or jargon.
Right. No, really good point. And, being relatable. And I agree, like the authenticity just has a certain element. And I kind of feel like even in what I'm doing for my business, I'm like, I'll tell people on these LinkedIn lives, I'm like, if something happens, my lighting kit falls over or a kid walks to the background, I'm like, I don't make mistakes, you guys. I have learning opportunities. And you just experienced one of my learning opportunities. And, we laugh about it, but I'm not overly stiff in these interviews. And I try to, keep things a lot more conversational. And I think that's part of the appeal is like, it's not overly choreographed. I'm not trying to be picture perfect every time. I'm trying to be real. And I want to be, it's a bit, entertaining and then it's informative and educational. And if you can find that right fit of how, you can use those characteristics and then blend in with your brand, you can support your business goals, whatever kind of climate you're in, right?
Yes. Yep, exactly. And then, talking about internal, external communication. So, I mean, I really believe how your brand handles communicating with its various audiences during this crisis will define its internal and external perception for years to come. And that may seem dramatic, but from a communications perspective, it's true, right? So you mess this up, you are losing potentially consumers that have been loyal to you for years, for a long time, and you may not ever regain them. So it's so, so important because people pay extra attention. And now that we're all consuming content like on an accelerated level than we were before, like we're really, really paying attention to the brands that are doing it well. So I think it's critically important. And then both from an internal and external perspective, I think starting with communicating the why. So that's something we're really big about at Franco. Every single one of our client programs, we start with the why, defining the why, understanding the why. Because if you don't get that inherent, like, why are we doing this? Why do you care to do this? What value is it going to bring? Then how can you build a program around it? So that's the question you really need to be able to answer when you're evaluating communications right now is, why should anybody care? Why should your employees care? Why should your clients, consumers, whomever, investors care? Answering that question and then being able to build messaging around that.
So your point, you talk about internal and external communications, and I just want to kind of go a little bit deeper on that point too. I mean, internally, some companies might say, well, we're in the business to do business. We're in here for our competitors. We need to turn a profit. We need to, return those profits to our shareholders. We need to demonstrate value to our customers. I mean, why, I'll kind of throw the argument, why is it important? Because I think some people do neglect their internal audiences, but why is that important, Nikki?
So committing to internal communications boosts loyalty and morale. So if you have motivated, loyal employees, they in turn are going to produce a good work product, which in turn will boost your profits, boost your revenue, get whatever external goals you're setting for your company. So that's what kind of baffles me, is when people don't understand the importance of taking care of your employees first, because they're the ones who are going to get you to where you want to go, right? Like, you can have that best top level executive leadership team, but if the teams who are laddering up to those executives aren't doing their job, aren't motivated, aren't inspired, aren't kicking butt every day, you're never going to achieve your company goals. So it starts by building up from the bottom and showing that leadership truly cares and that they're motivated to help inspire their teams. And I think now more so than ever, it's really important to be highlighting those small wins. So, it's different with a company that has 1,000 some employees compared to a Franco sized company that has 30. And we use Microsoft Teams to stay connected. And we started this, Staying Inspired channel in Teams. And if you're not familiar with Teams, it's like Slack, if you are familiar with that. So we are constantly sharing different things that we are doing while at home. So in the beginning, it was like, share a picture of your workspace. Like, how are you creating a cozy little nook for where you're working? Share photos of these great things that you're cooking or doing. What are some home projects? But then also, what are the great things that you're doing for all your clients? Because when we're not in the office and constantly having that in, those small group communications, we're not sharing those wins and those successes as easily. So really finding a way to, like I said, highlight the things that are going well to inspire your team. And then again, the informing them. So if your employees don't feel like that they understand what's happening in the business, whether it's with their teams or with the larger business, how are you motivated to continue doing a great job for a company that you don't get what they're trying to do, or you feel like you have a boss that doesn't communicate with you, you find things out secondhand, that's just not smart business. So again, to me, it blows my mind when I hear that leaders don't invest in communicating and supporting their employees, because like they're the ones that are going to get you where you want to go.
They're going to get it done. I mean, as a leader,
Yes.
your employees are really the ones who are interacting with your customers. If you're a good leader, you're empowering your teams to do that. And it reminds me also of philosophy, of there's paths to leadership and how you get things done. And there's the path of fear and intimidation. You will get your job done. You will be on email from 9 to 5, even if you're working from home. And because I told you so. And then the threat is kind of looming above that says, if you don't do this, we will fire you. We will get rid of you. And I think studies have shown that will motivate people to an extent in the short term, but only to the extent that they will not get in trouble. They will do the minimum effort possible to not get in trouble, right? Versus if you are kind of taking an empowerment, inspirational kind of a servant leadership approach to engaging your team, you will get better results, not only in the short term, but in the long term for your company, right? Yeah. And it's kind of funny how different leaders, and I feel like times like we're in today, are really shaping and defining and revealing leaders. What are the qualities they have? And some, it's revealing gaps. They just don't know how to lead in times of stress. And, companies are challenged right now with, what's happening. I mean, things are closing up right now, and we're hoping things will bounce back and the economy will recover, but there are going to be some challenging times ahead for organizations. So, how does that process start? If a company is coming to you and they're like, okay, we realize we've been neglecting our employees. How do we build an internal communication strategy? I mean, how do you kind of start that process?
Yeah, well, we would definitely start by looking at anything that they're currently doing and how we could improve that, and any current channels that they have. So email's an easy one, or an internal communication tool like a Slack, or some have larger internal networks like a SharePoint. So kind of evaluating what they have right now and then what they're willing to create moving forward. And then identifying a leader who, I think video is so powerful. And right now, I mean, being able to, especially now when you can't see people in person, to be able to just get a short video message from a leader who, again, is informing you on the state of affairs right now, maybe talking about some wins over the past week or whatever, talking about some opportunities up ahead. Like, when you're educated and informed, again, you feel like you're part of something bigger, and you're motivated to continue to perform to make not only yourself successful, but your team and the company successful. So when you were talking about the leadership by fear, that breeds an I culture, right? Because then it's all about me, and I'm going to do whatever I can to show that I'm doing a good job and I'm succeeding. And that doesn't matter if I'm supporting my teammate or if I'm throwing somebody else under the bus, because I'm motivated by fear. So I have to produce, and I have to show how I am doing the best, as opposed to how we as a collective team are doing a good job. Something I would recommend to leaders too is, like, don't be afraid to be a little vulnerable. I am a huge fan of Brene Brown. And the work that all the research on shame and courage and vulnerability she's done, and how you can apply that from a management and leadership perspective. So, there's a caveat there, because you want to, as a leader, show empathy, show vulnerability. Leaders need to demonstrate the complexity of their decisions, and especially now in a time like this, where they're making decisions to cut budgets or potentially furloughing and laying off employees, right? So there's kind of a skillful art in conveying the message of important business decisions, but also blending in that empathy, because if they go too far and they make it too much about themselves, and it begins with I am struggling just like how you are struggling, and they may feel like they're being relatable, but really they're making it all about them. So somebody who might be in an entry-level position can't really identify with the CEO, who's in a totally different world life position plus executive position. So it's that delicate balance of I care about you. I understand. I'm doing everything in my power to support you. Here's how we can do this together.
I love it.
One of my clients, their chief commercial officer, he sends out an email every Sunday, and he writes it himself. And he puts
That's
together,
rare nowadays, right? For executives to write their own emails, right?
Yes. But everything we're talking about inspiring leader, he would actually say motivation is intrinsic, inspiration is external. So he aims to inspire, and you have to take that inspiration and motivate yourself to move forward. But yeah, he just sends a short short and sweet email every Sunday that gives a recap of the things that went really well the week before, and then what's coming up in the weeks or months ahead. So again, it's such a simple thing to do, but it goes a long way because everybody knows where things are at with the business.
I love it. And you just are inspiring me because I do like a weekly email, and it's kind of like here's what's coming up for the week. Here's new events. And I do like a LinkedIn strategy tip, but I'm thinking like, how can I make it a little bit more personal? Well, what I could take a video of me and just say, hey guys, how are you doing? Here's where I'm at. And this is what's happening in my life. And I could talk about my banana chocolate chip muffin recipe.
Right.
I mean, it's making it relatable, but I love the fact that it's coming from him, and there's a genuine message that's coming along with it. So some really good nuggets here today, Nikki. Thank you for the inspiration.
One other thing on the internal comms I wanted to mention too is as we kind of start emerging from the like full on crisis, and I fully admit and understand that there are industries and businesses that are still in crisis mode right now, right? Like they are closed. They have not been able to be open for the past 8 weeks. So I get it. But there will come a point where hopefully that they will get to reopen again. They will get to bring their employees back again. So an important thing to do from an internal communications perspective is that leaders need to take time to reflect. So what went well during this crisis period? What did we do well for our employees, for our external audiences, and where did we have some misses? Because if you don't take time to reflect, then you can't learn from your mistakes, right? And self-awareness leads to growth just as much as it does for me as a person, it does for a business as well. So that reflection and that being honest with yourselves of like, we thought we did this well, but really come to find out like we had some misses here. How can we do this better in the future? And that can help shape your crisis communications plan moving forward.
That's really good. And I don't think any of us had in our crisis communications plan pandemic planning before, right? No. But I would gather this is probably something that's coming into the plans now, right?
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, it's, they say that something like this could happen again. And we've been hearing for years it could happen, but we're like, oh, it won't happen to us. But, just like you should have an emergency plan for your organization. I think about the kids in schools, they have fire drills and tornado drills. I mean, you should have a plan in place for things like this. And you used a term earlier, and I've been hearing the people saying, return to normal. And and then I'm hearing people say, it's not going to be a return to normal because this is shifting. But you talked about, I think a reemergence or what?
Reemergence.
Reemergence. I'm like, what is the word? I need to capture the reemergence. And I think that really helps us to kind of visualize because we all have been in hiding, so to speak.
Right.
And we're now going to have to go out and be around people in our offices. And I'm hearing some organizations saying they're going to have a staggered, 2 days a week in the office, 3 days home, or some organizations are saying we might have our over 50 crowd stay home a little bit longer as things kind of wane out. I mean, I don't know, but I think, there's going to be some type of a communication that goes out to employees that says, hey, we're concerned about you. We're concerned about your well-being. We also need to keep our business running, right? And once we get that all clear-ish, right? We're going to want to be back in the workplace again. And, then we got to kind of figure out what does life look like post-COVID, right?
Yeah, a phrase I read in a recent article was new abnormal because it's not going to be normal and it's going to look totally different. And anybody who thinks that even once stay-at-home orders are lifted and once businesses are able to reopen, I mean, it's naive to think that, and looking at it through a marketing and advertising perspective, that you're just going to be able to flip the switch and say, okay, dig up that campaign that we were planning to launch at the beginning of March and let's go do it.
Dust it off and pop that baby on, right?
Yeah, like no way, right? Like hopefully you'll be able to take some of what you've been planning. And again, going back to the shift and adjust, make it relevant, make it relatable for right now. Hopefully you can use some of that, but like you got to put it through that lens of like, what did we just go through? Where were our consumers and their buying wants, needs journey prior to this? Where are they now? Does this campaign still make sense? If it does with a little bit of tweaks and adjustments, then by all means do it. If it doesn't, then I mean, you got to can it and try to come up with something new and save it. And maybe next year at this time, it will make sense. So yeah, I think, the best communicators and marketers can pivot quickly and be nimble. I think that's something that's important for any crisis too. Something that I'm really proud of my team for doing is that like we change things quickly, and we helped do exactly what I just said with a lot of our clients. And I'm sure a lot of other people who are listening right now have done the same thing, where they stopped and they were like, what we were planning is not going to work. Like, put on the brakes, let's figure out what we need to do. But that like ability to pivot, think quickly, but then also kind of weave in that creativity and strategy at the same time is the result of a really great marketer or communicator.
Yeah, and I've heard about this throughout time. The people that are the idea people, the ones that can pivot quickly, that aren't feeling like, oh, when things change, like it's a dead end. That, okay, things have changed. Okay, now where's the opportunity? You have to kind of always be able to think creatively and empower a team and have a team in place that gets that. And then as a leadership team, you need to trust, those employees and let them do what they do best, right? Come up with the ideas and think of the alternative path. So I really like that. And you're that kind of person. I feel like you, and in any environment, in any organization, and I've seen you throughout your career, and I watched you online, and I'm like, she's going to be she changed jobs, she's going to be a success, so they're going to love her. Oh, she's moved there, she's going to be a success, so they're going to love her. And it's been really empowering to see, and just the evolution of your career, kind of watching you online, and you have that ability. You just kind of you go where the business needs to go, and you make adjustments, but always kind of keeping your end customers in mind, whether those are internal audiences or external audiences. So really, kind of keep that full circle. So before we jump into comments here, I'm just going to remind folks here that if you drop a comment on Facebook, I'm going to actually just take this off of screen here. So if you drop a comment on Facebook, I can actually pull your comments up on screen. So we've got a couple of folks on Facebook on here. Catherine says hello to both of us.
Hello, Catherine.
Here we go. We have Zareen, knows others at Franco, so it's nice to see you. And let's see, Catherine also loved the topic and loved the idea. So thank you for that feedback there, Catherine. And I want to encourage you guys, if you haven't done so already, definitely go to the live, kind of the comment section of the live. It's like right at the bottom, and just drop a comment in there and let us know if you're watching this live, where you are. Are you, are you here in Metro Detroit, like Nikki and I? Are you some other place in the world? How's your day going? And kind of let us know that. And I'll give you a little shout out right now. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually going onto LinkedIn. I have to look down to kind of see the comments. Okay. I'm not able to pull the LinkedIn up on screen. So I'm not ignoring you, Nikki. I'm still here with you.
You prepared me well before we started.
So I'm just going to give some shout outs here. So hi to Sanjay, to KM. Let's see. Valerie Connor says hi, Brenda and Nikki. Gary Spondike says Detroit loves our Nikki. Is that somebody you know?
Hey, Gary. Yes.
You got the Nikki fan club on the line here today. So Anne had asked a question. She needs help finding an internal communications platform, and it looks like some other folks had responded back to her. But any thoughts there on that, Nikki? Internal communications platform that Anne could look at.
I love Slack. If your teams use Microsoft as your main platform, then Microsoft Teams makes a lot of sense to use. We did previously use Slack at Franco, but then because we use Microsoft across the board, we love Teams because it easily integrates with all of our documents. We can pull documents up within Teams, work collaboratively on them. So there's just that nice integration there, but I love Slack. It's really great.
Okay. And she's specifying more, and I'll send you the link a little bit later here, Nikki, but she's looking for something that integrates with Gmail, individual tracking, links with her newsletter marketing program. So it looks like she's looking at some.
Okay.
I'll send you the link to follow up, but thank you, Anne, for that question. Really thoughtful. And it sounds like you're going in that direction that Nikki's been talking about all along, is focusing in on your employees. So just wanted to really say thank you for incorporating that. Pam Lippitt says great information. Cheryl Deneen says thanks for all your help as well. And so we've got, let's see where we're at in terms of viewers. I think I have a little over 100 views so far of the video here, and 17 comments. And I'll continue to pop back in here and see who's joining us in the comments as well. So here, Anne, and she's saying she's a 911, 911 EMS and mobile healthcare agency. So Anne, you're probably real busy these days. She's saying her EMTs and paramedics are on the road. So, and someone else suggested a mobile app as well. And are you using mobile apps in your employee communications there, Nikki?
Yeah, Teams has a mobile app, so we use that for staying connected and communicating because it, again, integrates seamlessly from whether you're on desktop or laptop or on mobile.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for that. And as we're kind of rounding out the hour here, and I just want to give Nikki the opportunity. Any final thoughts here on internal and external communication strategy, kind of where we're at now, and advice for people as they move forward? And then after that, I'll give you the opportunity if you want to give any shout outs to anyone watching, whether it's your coworkers in your home or your team members or other folks that are out there too.
Yeah, I know. I feel like there's so much I could say on this topic. I could talk about it for even longer than an hour. So if anybody wants to continue the conversation afterward, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or my email is little@franco.com. But I mean, I know I talked a little bit about external communications, but a couple other tips there is, so we talked about the relevancy, right? Kind of putting the existing or planned campaigns through that relevancy lens, figuring out, can we make it work? If not, can we shift? If not, should we can? And then, I just totally lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh, emphasizing the.
You got it back quick. I'm impressed. So I'm like, I had the mom brain, like after the first kid, like the things I would forget them and I would like remember them. And after the second kid, I was like, it's gone. It's just completely gone. It will never come back.
I know.
A day later.
I know, right? So with external communications, emphasizing the larger purpose and focusing on the end goal, right? So people are spending a lot more time online and consuming content right now, which is a good thing, but then that ups the competition, right? Because there already was so much content to consume. Now there's even more. So thinking about like, what can I write? What can I create in video? What imagery can I show that's gonna kind of stop that scroll, be memorable, and I identify a pain point right now. So again, it has to be relevant to the people that you're trying to reach, but like really finding a way to like communicate that larger purpose, that end goal. And I was reading an article yesterday that had a really good example of this, of like, think about it, airlines, they give you airplanes, right? But what's that larger end goal? They help connect people. Electric companies, they help generate electricity in your home, but really they help keep the refrigerator powered, that keeps the food that you bought with your hard-earned money fresh and ready to eat, right? So thinking about it from that perspective, from a marketing standpoint of like, instead of just like communicating the like straight on facts of like, here's who we are, here's who we do, how do you help fulfill that end goal, that larger purpose? And how does that tie into just the state of where we are right now?
Okay, awesome. And I pulled up your website. I hope you don't mind, Nikki.
Yeah.
But I see that you guys have a resource. We didn't talk about this before, guys. So I just pulled up the website. I thought it was like, wow, this is kind of cool. So you've got a COVID communication strategies for the next phase of the global pandemic. And this is something like folks could download the guide off of your website?
Yep. If you click on Get the Guide, there's a little bit of content there, but you can download it. So this is version 2. And this is, again, kind of practicing what we preach, is that we really halted some of the marketing campaigns that we had planned from Franco, and we shifted to start producing content that was helping business leaders with communications challenges that they have been facing through these different phases and weeks of this crisis. We kind of changed our social content to reflect that too. We actually we usually do a monthly newsletter, and sometimes we'll do others on top of that, depending on what's happening. Like 313 Day, we did a special newsletter. International Women's Day, we did, because Franco is 78% women.
Awesome.
Which is something we're really proud of. Yes.
Yeah.
But then we said, what can we do to connect with our email database and stay in front of them, but not from a heavy hitting marketing perspective? So we have the Detroit Inspires Me campaign that we launched about 5 years ago at TEDx. So as an offshoot of that, we created the Staying Inspired. So we just send an email out every couple of weeks to our newsletter list with different stories. Some are clients, but they are truly inspiring stories, like Pope Francis Center and what they've been doing to help the homeless in Detroit through this crisis. And then others who we don't work with, but we've just been inspired by their stories. So we wanted to share them.
Awesome. So I'm doing a little bit of a preview up on screen here, guys. But if you go to
Yeah.
franco.com, I really like that it wasn't gated. Like I didn't have to fill out a form and give my blood
Yes.
type and like what am I at in the crisis and how am
Right.
I doing today. I just like click the links and everything's in there. So I think it's really nice that you guys are providing that resource. So check out franco.com, and then I'm going to pop Nikki's URL up here on the screen. So check out Nikki on LinkedIn. Are you open to accepting invitations from folks who are watching the broadcast here today?
Absolutely.
Awesome. And if you guys do visit her profile, when you invite her to connect, mention that you saw her here on LinkedIn. If you have any additional questions, definitely reach out to her. And then Nikki, I'll give you the final question. Do you have any, I started doing kind of do you want to give any shout outs to anybody, any team members that might be watching this now or in playback, or family members or clients?
Oh man. I feel like there's so many. I give my team shout outs all day, every day. So if any of them are watching, you know how much I love you and appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. I don't know. I guess I would give a shout out to you, Brenda, and anybody else who's like continuing to do this connecting with people and just talking through different things that can help others right now. I feel like, again, this made sense for you to continue doing this because you
Right.
had been doing this prior to this crisis, but I like how you've been adjusting some of the content to make it relevant to what we're going through right now. And anybody else who has been shifting and putting themselves out there more on video or through email or whatever else it may be to help others and be there as a resource.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that. And yeah, it's like, well, kind of, my business is taking a hit. I mean, there's a lot of people who are independent contractors and consultants that are the same. And it's like, okay, well, I could sit on my hands and file for unemployment and wait for things to come back, or I can kind of
Sure.
figure out, okay, what resources do I have that I can use to help others? And, part of it, I've been doing like a free LinkedIn for job seekers. And I'm like, well, I've got this platform. Not everybody has access to LinkedIn Live. And I was doing like once a week in the beginning. And I'm like, I think I'm just going to do them every day now. Like I'll just invite interesting people to come out. And
Right.
it's nice to have conversations, with even folks like you. Like we met for coffee once, but we really haven't had a chance to chat in a long time. So it's nice to see you and to chat with you and use the platform. And, and then when things resume to normal, or what was the term you used again?
The new abnormal.
The new abnormal. That's gonna be
when we get into the new abnormal.
Yeah, we'll see you. I'm sure I'll see you at events in the new abnormal or in the post-COVID days when we're back to, I don't know. Do you think we'll be shaking hands or hugging people, or are we done with that?
Oh my goodness. I don't know, honestly. Like, I think there's going to be a lot more reservation to doing that, at least in the next couple of months.
Right.
Truly for me, like, I'm a planner, right? And especially from like a communications perspective, we have to plan. But I think there's just so much that we just need to like commit to not knowing what's going to happen right now. So we can loosely plan and we can try to be as prepared as possible. But like I'm trying same thing with my kids. Like I'm trying to not freak out about like, oh my God, there's all this talk about there not being school in the fall. Well, let's get there when we get.
Happening. Is there talk about that?
I mean, don't get me started. Yeah, exactly, right? Like I'm gonna take these things as they become a reality, and I'm gonna figure out what my action plan is. I'm gonna kind of have a loose plan in mind, but like we just gotta start getting back into it and seeing what happens, seeing what people feel comfortable with, and then adjusting from there.
Yeah, really good point. And I kind of feel like I was telling people, it's kind of like when I was little and we would be driving to Pennsylvania from Michigan, and I would ask my dad, how much longer? And he would say, oh, it's just a little bit. And that's kind of like what's happening right now. We don't know. I mean, reality is we didn't know how bad things were going to be and how long they would go on. But if someone had told us, Nikki, back in the beginning of March, okay, you're going to be going home today and you're not going to be coming back until, May or June. I mean, we would have been like, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. This is going to be like a couple weeks and then we'll be back. And, but it's kind of like my dad saying, just a little bit longer, well, how much longer? Just a little bit longer. If you had told us you're going to be home for 2 to 3 months. And then, by the way, the last day of school the kids had, I think it was March 12th for them. But my son didn't know that was his last day. He's a freshman in high school. He didn't know that was last day. He still got stuff in his locker. My daughter's got things in her desk we need to clean up. But, it is what it is, and we got to just roll with it and plan for what's next. So I just want to say thank you, Nikki, for joining today. It was really a pleasure speaking with you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Well, thank you guys. And for all of you who are watching, if you happen to be watching this in playback, still leave a comment below. Let us know that you're watching in playback. If you have any questions for Nikki, or if you want to join in on the conversation, offer tips on what you're doing for internal and external communication strategies, love that as well. And then make sure you subscribe to my e-newsletter if you're not already doing so. You'll get LinkedIn strategy tips and also notification about other upcoming interviews that I have in my series. So thank you again, Nikki. Stay safe and have a good time at home there. We'll see you in public soon, and everybody else stay safe as well. We'll see you soon.